Welcome to Jane Jackson Careers, a podcast to inspire you to take your career to the next level. In this podcast, I chat with amazing professionals who are leaders in their field and find out what's made them a success. Many of them have successfully made changes in their careers. They may have changed industry, changed job function, made big city or country moves, or taken the huge leap into entrepreneurship. I also share practical and actionable career tips for those who want to explore what to do next in their career and aren't sure about what steps to take to get moving. Subscribe to this podcast for regular updates or visit me at janejacksoncoach.com.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas introducing Jane Jackson Careers, a podcast that will inspire you to take control of your career and your life. Here's your host, Jane Jackson, career management coach and author of Navigating Career Crossroads. Be prepared to ignite.
Well, hello and welcome back to my Careers podcast. This is episode 21 and today I have a lovely lady, Dr. Linda Wilson, a stress management specialist on the show. Now, Linda is a corporate wellness consultant, an owner-operator of a multi-modality wellness practice. Linda is author of Stress Made Easy, Peeling Women Off the Ceiling. What a fantastic title. And has developed online programs for individuals as well as providing in-house corporate training for businesses wanting to maximize their biggest asset, their people. Linda's philosophy is well-beings create well businesses. Influenced by her own time in the corporate environment, Linda saw firsthand the effects of stress on productivity. Informed not only by 18 years clinical experience as a stress management specialist, Linda's Bachelor of Science degree in traditional Chinese medicine and graduate diploma in education give her a holistic and outcomes-driven perspective when dealing with individuals and groups. When not working with clients, Linda has her own weekly radio show focusing on stress management, health and wellness, and invites guests to discuss their perspectives on how to build healthy people and healthy businesses. And now I'm thrilled to give a big welcome to Linda.
Thank you so much, Jane. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Oh, well, I'm really excited to hear all about your career path and how you came to become the stress expert or the stress management expert. So let's find out a little bit about you. Tell me about your early days and where you're from and when you were growing up.
Sure. So I was actually born in the Central Desert, so right bang smack in the middle of Australia. For your overseas listeners, they might identify that area as the Central Desert, or they might associate it with Ayers Rock, for example. So I grew up in a very small town called Alice Springs, and it was truly isolated when I was a little girl. And because the desert can be really, really hot and really, really cold, I sort of got used to having those extremes in my life. It was an amazing place to grow up. It taught me a lot of things, and I missed out on a lot of just common experiences as well. Just one example is I didn't know how to buy bus tickets when I went to the big city because we had no public transport in Alice Springs. But it also made me a very bad employee because I had grown up so used to knowing my own mind, making my own decisions, and then following through with those decisions. So, you know, good and bad in every person's childhood, I think.
Yeah, it must have felt quite isolated when you were out in the desert as well, because being so far away from everything, it would have been a very different upbringing from one such as mine, because I grew up in Hong Kong and there were people around me everywhere.
I think that for me it was just normal. I didn't really have anything else to compare it to until I was much older and actually moved to Adelaide for boarding school, for example. And I guess up until that point, for me it was just the way that life was. in my later years, I certainly recognised that isolation, and I couldn't live there now, but I do know that when I go back to Alice Springs, I have a very strong connection to that isolation. It actually brings me an enormous amount of peace and self-calm.
I think sometimes just being away gives you that opportunity to reflect internally, and having a bit of peace and quiet is always lovely too. Now, Linda, tell me, when you went off to boarding school and you were a young girl, did you have any dreams about what you wanted to be when you grew up?
In my teens, I think I was actually quite lost in terms of thinking about a career. I really sort of had no clue about the direction that I wanted to go in, and I think that this was because there were really few examples of healthcare practitioners or providers outside of the medical model, and I did know within my own mind that that's not a path that I wanted to follow. My mother was a nurse, so I was quite familiar with that system, but it wasn't something for me, and yet I really knew I was very drawn to working with people in that way. So I'd been introduced to things like naturopathy and massage through various family members, but I didn't know, and this is part of the isolation and disconnection that we briefly mentioned, I didn't actually know how that might translate into a career for me. So I was pretty aimless to a certain extent, and life just sort of flowed past me. And I do think that that actually was one of the main reasons that my parents sent me away to boarding school, because it was a way to actually open up that world of thinking for me. So I'm extremely grateful for that experience.
Well, so many of us do feel quite lost when we're, say, in our teens, and we start to think about, oh, what subject should I take for my final exams, and where should I go for, to go to college or to go to university, and we have no idea what it is that we want to do, and we get so focused on the subjects we should be studying, or the course that we should take, at university, and then we think, oh, if we choose the wrong one, is that going to be it for my career? When actually
Yes.
things do evolve. So let's find out about how things evolved for you.
So I was, again, extremely lucky to have parents, particularly my mother, who really wanted to expand my horizons and get me to sort of know that there was a much bigger world out there. So I actually went and lived in Japan for 12 months as an exchange student. And you can imagine I had gone from Alice Springs, middle of the desert, to Adelaide, which for me was a huge sort of metropolis, to a city in Japan that was bigger than anything that I could even conceive of. So in terms of it expanding my mind, this was a really, really massive experience. Not only that, I came face to face with not being able to communicate because I was needing to actually learn Japanese. And this is how sort of isolated, I guess I was, Jane. I didn't even know where Japan was when I agreed to go there. So there was a real level of sort of, naivety, and to a certain extent quite a bit of ignorance as well. I came back from Japan. I went to Sydney. I got accepted into the University of Sydney to do a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and Linguistics, and I was fascinated by psychology, but I was also really shocked about the actual mental health of the people that were teaching me. I guess I'm not too sure what else I could say about that other than they weren't healthy models in my mind of what a healthcare practitioner should be. So whether that was to do with their physical health or just the way they conducted themselves with the students, it was a bit of an eye-opener for me and turned my head away from that as a definite sort of a career opportunity. I went travelling again extensively through Asia, and I just kept on being called by those cultures. Eventually, I went back to Alice Springs, worked for a few years, saved up, and was accepted into Deakin University because of my work experience with Indigenous people in the Central Desert. And I did my graduate diploma in education and health. And all the way through that, I kept on thinking, what on earth am I going to do with myself? And through just one of those amazing sort of coincidences, I got introduced to traditional Chinese medicine. And for me, it was like a coming home. It was the first time that I had really been introduced to this concept of mind-body medicine and how incredibly powerful it is. And most people know this is a modality with thousands of years of history. So it really appealed to me from that perspective as well.
I think probably from moving from being in the desert to Adelaide and then going to Japan for that 1 year exchange program, which would have opened your eyes to such a different culture,
Yes.
and then learning some of the language too, and then traveling around Asia. How would you say that your travels and experiencing the different cultures affected the way that you decided on your own career path moving forward?
What I realised through all of those experiences is that no one person, no one culture thinks about things in a set way. And it really made me realise that the cultural perspectives on our personal health, on our mental health, are also quite different. So the way that individual cultures deal with that side of things and deal with their stress is a really unique and distinct thing. And it made me even more intensely curious about human beings. I mean, I knew human beings were going to be, like all of us, a big part of of my life, but I also knew that I wanted to be very involved in a way to do with thinking and feeling and how I could participate in that with people.
You know, you said that finding out about the traditional Chinese medicine was like coming home for you. So what is it about traditional Chinese medicine that's such a draw?
I think for me, it was the first time that I really had an introduction to this concept that we are a universe within ourselves and we are connected, you know, as above, so below. We're connected to the earth, we're connected to the universe, and we are just one part of that. And I had always felt that in the desert. You know, I'm not sure if you've ever been there, Jane, but if you lay out in the desert looking up at the sky, it's a very sobering experience to appreciate how small you are in the true immensity of our universe. And this philosophy just sort of, as I said, it made me feel like I had come home. I also really loved the respect that it gave to individuals and the control that it gave to individuals, because within Chinese medicine, there are many ways that your client can become their own practitioner and their own healer. And I really respected that as part of the philosophy. As I said, I'd seen the Western medical model and it really did not appeal to me.
You know, what's interesting is this is close to my own heart as well, because I'm half Chinese and half English, and my mum's from Hong Kong. So being a Hong Kong Chinese lady, yes, the self-healing, she would so often prescribe herself ways of healing if she felt a little bit of rheumatism, or whether she wanted to try acupuncture or cupping, or she would boil up, when I was a little girl growing up, she would boil up all of these potions with herbs and terrible smelling things, awful things that she would
the twigs and bark.
It's unbelievable what I had to drink when I was growing up, but I'm sure it's made me a very healthy person now. But
Yes.
but
I
honestly,
think
the taste is just, I don't know why. I think if something tastes bad, my mum kept saying it's going to be good for you.
It's good for you, yes, absolutely. And I think too, one of the other links that I made with those cultures is that my dad was a very passionate cook and he loved Asian food. And, you know, many of those cultures have a tradition that food is medicine. So that was also a very strong link for me, because, of course, my dad making me a curry on the weekend, or a, you know, beautiful noodle bowl was a, you know, a shared love experience with my parents. So I could really relate to that as well.
Yes, there's nothing like some really good comfort food to bring you back to your early days again.
That's it.
And so now, so you discovered traditional Chinese medicine. What did you do with it? Did you set up your own practice then, or did you work for somebody else? How did your career develop?
So I did spend some time before I actually shifted into the Chinese medicine. I did spend time in corporate. I was there at the day that one of our big telcos actually opened their doors, and it was an amazing thing because they were the first to bring, I guess, competition into Australia. And that was an incredible time in my life as well. But I realised at that time what a dreadful employee I made. I was too used to having that kind of independent thinking. So I actually shifted out of my corporate career and straight into Chinese medicine, giving up all the security of that, that work, and just really throwing myself into being a student again. And I then graduated, and during that time I actually met and married my husband, who is a chiropractor. So we set up two clinics, actually, one that I practiced from by myself and one that I worked in with him and some other practitioners. So sort of pretty much from the get-go, when I graduated, I was working as a solo practitioner or in a team full-time with my acupuncture.
And so when you were in the corporate environment and working for a telecommunications company, what was your role there?
I was a support person, so my job was to make sure that the retail outlets had all of the support that they needed to actually do their job well, to support their customers, to provide the customer service that levels that they wanted to. So it was a job with quite a bit of responsibility, and my job was basically to share myself amongst a group of retailers and make sure they had everything that they needed.
So that must have required an awful lot of multitasking. Is this when you first noticed the pressure that people felt and the stress that they might be under within a corporate environment?
It really was, and actually it was also the first time that I noticed my own reaction to stress. What I realised during that time is that I was a highly functioning person during the week and a non-functioning person on the weekend, and by that I used to get home on a Friday night and I could guarantee that 2 hours after I got home, I would have a headache that would last all weekend. I'd sort of pull myself together on a Sunday afternoon and head back in on a Monday morning. And it really illustrated to me that I was not doing something that I was passionate about. There were aspects of my job that I absolutely loved, mostly the communication with the people that I was working with. But that pressure that you mentioned, that the deadlines, the constant sense of responsibility. We were working to very tight time frames often, and I was one of those people also that was setting up voicemail boxes. I don't know if you remember that, Jane, when mobiles first came in, and they had to be each individual mobile phone. You had to set up a voicemail box for that person. So there were thousands of those going through my department every week. So I noticed it in myself, and I certainly noticed it in the people around me who were sort of dropping like flies at various times. And don't get me wrong, we had a wonderful place of work, but what we didn't necessarily have was the skills to manage our stress. And certainly that is why I'm so incredibly passionate about it now.
It almost sounds like you went full circle, this attraction to helping others, assisting in developing good, healthy habits as well was something that's sort of in your blood, really. And then going into the corporate environment, you were taken out of your natural behavior and really, what your true passions were. This is what I find a lot when I'm coaching my career clients as well, is that when they tell me how unhappy they are in their current roles or their most recent roles, it's normally because they had to do something that didn't actually come naturally to them. And I find that we can be out of our comfort zone for about 20% of the day. We can handle that without too much stress. But when it gets to be outside of our comfort zone or outside of our natural behavior for about 80% of the day, it ends up being really stressful. And I was in that situation for about a year once in a previous role. And I was getting the headaches too. And I was exhausted over the weekends, and I just didn't want to do anything. And then when Monday would come, I would not leap out of bed thinking, great, I can't wait to get there. I'd just pull the covers over my head and think, no, I'm not going. But of course, you'd have to drag yourself out. So it sounds like you went through something similar. So
Absolutely.
you decided to remove yourself from that environment.
I did, and it was the best decision that I've ever made because, sometimes we have to learn the hard way, I guess, and I did have to go through that that period in my life and recognize that this environment really was not for me. I wasn't able to express myself in the way that I wanted to, and I certainly wasn't able to help people in the way that I wanted to. So I guess what it did is it sort of narrowed my focus somewhat, because I was able to sort of cross that sort of career path off my list as a possibility for me. And I think that that's a great thing about progressions in your career. You're able to actually really refine down what it is that does light you up, that does bring you passion, that is an expression of yourself as an individual. And certainly that's how I work with my clients. We certainly go through what are the physical experiences you have at the moment and sort of narrow down where it is that they need to make changes.
And so now you assist individuals who are going through stressful circumstances or need to manage their stress levels more effectively?
Yes, that's my one-on-one work. So I see clients in my wellness practice, and what I do is basically teach them about, one, how they do their own stress, because we all do stress in a slightly different way, and that's just because of the way that our brains actually read our world or interpret our world. So we work out how do people do it, and then we find out ways to actually break that down. So my major focus is to put tools in the hands of people so that they can actually start to really take responsibility for how they're feeling, how they're reacting, how they're interpreting experiences in their life.
That's such important work as well. And as an additional offering, you have this amazing book, Stress Made Easy, Peeling Women Off the Ceiling. It's such a good title. I love it. Sometimes I feel like I'm stuck up there on the ceiling as well. Tell us a bit about...
So do I, Jane.
Yes, tell us a bit about the book, Linda.
So I wrote the book like many people do who are in sort of, I guess, coaching or professional type roles. There's only one of us. And I realized that seeing my clients is a huge passion of mine, but it really isn't getting things out there as quickly as I would like it to happen. And I have a mission, and my mission and my passion is to really exponentially exponentially change the way that we deal with our own self-care. And so the book is basically it's a leverage tool to do that. The book works as a workbook, and I love the idea of people sitting in trains on their way to their corporate job that they're not loving, working their way through the book and really fining down how it is that they can take responsibility for their health. And it is, I guess from the title, you can see that it's aimed at women, and that is because the predominant clientele that I deal with is women. However, the lessons in the book are equally as pertinent and relevant to my male clients as well.
I think this would be a very valuable book for my clients too, because the majority of the people that I work with are going through career transition, mainly because they've gone through a redundancy where they work. And when you have this enforced change in your life, and it's a major change because it's your career, and obviously it affects your finances and every aspect of your life, the stress levels just shoot up. And so I coach them on how to manage stress, but I think your book will be a wonderful addition, because I could say, here, read this.
Yes.
And, whenever you've got a spare moment, you can go through it and use some of your techniques. So tell me, what would be your top 3 tips for managing stress?
Okay, so the top 3 tips are, for me, I'll tell you what my top 3 tips are for myself, and that is I need to use my own tools. So we spend a lot of time teaching people other tools, and what I have realized is that I have to take responsibility for myself and use my own tools in my own life. So 1, use what you already know if it's working for you. If not, find something else. Second one is keep it really simple. And I think that comes back to our lives are so complicated, Jane, and so full of, drama often, which shows itself in all kinds of different ways. But we need to get back to a little bit of simplicity. And that's why I love the tools that I use, because they are very simple once you know how to use them to create a change. And the third one would be to be really authentic in your communication about your own life capacity. So that's authentic within yourself and authentic with the people around you, because my belief is that I can do it all. That myth is alive and well, and I really think that it's detrimental. So I've seen too many clients or business owners trying to do it all, and eventually something gives. And usually it's their relationships and or their physical or emotional health. And we can actually avoid this if we're connected to ourselves and honour our capacity. And that's why I'm just so passionate about teaching self-care.
I think, especially for women, we have this superwoman syndrome
Mm-hmm.
where, you want to be, a great partner, a great wife, a great mother, a really good corporate citizen, and whatever else that we tend to take on. And
Yes.
want to do the exercise, we want to cook well, we want it all. And one
Mm-hmm.
of my friends said to me the other day, Jane, I think you have rushing woman syndrome. and,
Yes.
and I think, well, yes, maybe I am trying to do too much. But you know what? I think if you love it and it's not
Mm.
affecting your health, it's fine. But
Yes.
then if it starts to affect your health and you're not happy because of
Yes.
it, then we've got to use your tools and techniques to be able to manage it. And so this Stress Made Easy, Peeling Women Off the Ceiling, where can we get it?
So you can find my book on Amazon or through any of the online bookstores. If you just look it up via the title, Stress Made Easy, Peeling Women Off the Ceiling. You can also get it through my website. Are you okay for me to mention my website, Jane?
Mention away, Linda.
Okay, so it's Dr. Linda with an I, Wilson.com. And also for anybody who's interested, not only is the book there, but there's resources there in terms of videos and discussion around the tools that I actually use with people and why they work. So what's actually going on within your brain and within your body when you actually use these tools to manage your stress.
Sounds like it's going to be a really interesting website to surf around and find out some information. Now, I know you also have an e-course that you're offering
Yes.
to people as well. Tell us a little bit about what your course involves.
So I'm actually going through a new launch phase of my individual program, and that's based around 6 modules that you can do at home. You know, you would relate to this, Jane. Sometimes when we're wanting to change things in our life, we're doing it at 11 o'clock at night. And that's why having it as an online course was so important for me, because people need to be able to access it when they possibly can fit it into their lives. So it's a 6-module program with some additionals. If you are interested in having a look at that, go to my website, register your interest. There's no obligation. Mention that you heard about it through Jane Jackson, and we will make sure that you get all of the additional bonus materials that I reserve for my gold level clients. And also there's an option there if you'd like to work with me one-on-one. You can do that via Skype. You can connect to me through the website as well.
Oh, wonderful. And so this is how you can manage your stress levels, how to gain more balance in your life and lead really a happy, well-balanced life moving forward.
Correct. And it's also about really understanding what is happening in our mind and in our body and what that actual connection is all about. Most of the time, most of us are living from the neck up, and we've actually forgotten that there's 95% of us is actually below the neck. And if we can connect into our bodies and use it as an education, use it as a resource, it's phenomenal how we can improve our energy, improve our focus, improve our level of communication, and use it as a way to actually de-stress as well. People think about that in terms of, the very common ways that we think about de-stressing with our body is exercising, but I'm actually talking about using the sensations and the feelings and the thoughts that we're having to understand what we're doing in terms of interpreting our world and our stress, and then changing that if that's indeed what we want to do.
So you know what, Linda? Just listening to your voice, I'm relaxing.
I do a bit of hypnosis too, Jane, so maybe that's what it's happening.
Is that what's coming through over the podcast,
I've got my
Linda?
practitioner on as well, yes.
Now remember, I do NLP too, so it'll go both ways.
We have fun with that, don't we?
Yes, that's right. Now, the offerings you have are amazing. So people can find you at drlindawilson.com, and you've got a whole lot of free resources so they can actually start to benefit their lives right away. Plus, if they want to work with you, then you've got the e-course, which is really it's sort of on demand. So whenever they've got spare time, then they can actually log on to the next episode and the next episode and learn how to tap into their own bodies.
Correct, that's right. And Jane, if you don't mind, I'm also about to launch a corporate offering. So if there are business owners out there who have a business, and what they're wanting to do is just give their clients a basic understanding of their stress and then an introduction to a variety of different tools around how to manage it, I might be your gal, unless you'd prefer to work with Jane, which I could completely understand.
No, I focus on the career side. I think for you it's going to be a holistic relaxation, which would be wonderful. So now you have been listening to Dr. Linda Wilson, who's a corporate wellness consultant, and she's the author of Stress Made Easy, Peeling Women Off the Ceiling. A wonderful, wonderful lady. And I hope that in the months to come, I'll be able to have you back on the show again, and you can tell me more about your corporate offerings and how the online course is going.
Fabulous, Jane. Thank you so much for your time today. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, it's been great talking to you. Thank you, Linda. Bye.
Okay, bye.
You've been listening to Jane Jackson Careers. Sign up to receive regular career advice at janejacksoncoach.com.